Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something you sent to us, a legal briefing. And let me tell you, it's a doozy.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about Algeria's new data protection law.
Interesting. A lot of people might be thinking, Algeria, why should I care?
Exactly. But stick with us because this is relevant to anyone, anywhere, who handles data.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
This deep dive, this is on Algeria's Law 1807, by the way, which, for those keeping track, just went into effect in August 2023. It's going to be pretty interesting.
I'm excited.
Because we're talking about a new national authority with some serious power. We're talking about companies needing to keep very, very detailed records of what they're doing with data.
Wow.
And fines that'll make your head spin. But you know what? You've given us some really dense legal stuff.
It's a bit much, to be honest. Yeah. Legal documents, they're not really known for being reader-friendly, are they?
No, not at all. So we're going to break it down, make it something that you can actually use.
Love that. I think what I find really interesting here is how this law, it really reflects a global trend towards data protection. It's everywhere you look.
It's true.
So even if you don't work specifically in Algeria, you'll probably get something out of this.
That's a good point. You can get ahead of the curve, figure out where data privacy is going, and who knows, maybe yours is next.
Exactly.
So before we get into it, before we get down to the nitty-gritty, let's just make sure we're on the same page.
Good idea.
When we say personal data, what are we talking about? This document, I will give it credit, does use some pretty straightforward language.
It does.
Which is nice for a change.
Right. Personal data, at its core, is really any information that can be used to identify a person. Could be directly, could be indirectly.
Okay, I like it.
So we're talking about names, phone numbers, those online profiles we all have.
Makes sense.
But it goes beyond that. Think about even those old paper files, the ones tucked away in a storage room somewhere. This law, it covers it all. Digital or physical, it doesn't matter.
So wait, hold on. It's not just about fancy algorithms and, online databases and all this. Even my, shoebox of old receipts could be a problem.
You got it. This law's got its eye on that shoebox.
Okay, all right. So I think I'm getting it. What about this data processing? That's another one they use all the time. What does that mean?
Data processing is really just any action you take on data. Any action.
Like what? Give me an example.
So if you're collecting it, if you're storing it, are you analyzing it, even deleting it, all of that falls under the umbrella of data processing according to this law. And here's the kicker. It covers automated A&D, non-automated processing. It's a big deal.
So even if you're not some tech company with servers, buzzing away,
Right.
you still need to pay attention to this.
Big time.
Okay. I think we've laid the groundwork here.
I think so too.
So let's get down to brass tacks.
Let's do it.
What are the big things, what are the really important things that companies have to do to follow this law?
So the law lays out a few key things companies need to do. First off, you've got to appoint a data protection representative. Think of this person as your company's data champion. They're responsible for making sure you're following the rules.
So like a data protection superhero.
Exactly.
I love it. All right, so data protection superhero, check. What else?
Okay, so transparency is also really important here. Companies, they need to keep a really thorough register of all their data processing activities.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know it sounds like a pain, but it's all about accountability, right?
That's true. That's true.
You've got to know exactly what data you have, where'd it come from, who can see it, the whole 9 yards.
No more flying under the radar with, shady data practices.
Nope, not anymore. Those days are over.
Okay, so you've got your data superhero, you've got your records in order. What about getting permission to use this data in the first place? I'm guessing that's probably a big deal under this law.
Oh, you better believe it. Getting consent to process data, it's essential. Like we were saying, this law, it really stresses the rights of individuals to control their own information, and getting consent is at the heart of that.
Which makes sense. I mean,
Right.
It is your information, right?
Yeah.
You get to say how it's used.
100%.
So consent, that's a big one. What else is on the must-do list for companies?
Let's see, we've got consent, we've got the data protection representative, keeping records. Oh, data security, that's a big one. That's another major thing companies need to be on top of. And this is where things get interesting.
Oh, how so?
Well, the law, it doesn't actually lay out specific security measures.
Really?
Yeah, so there's a bit of room for interpretation there.
So it's kind of like, you need to keep this data safe, but
Yeah.
we're not going to tell you exactly how, figure it out.
Yeah, kind of. But in all seriousness, that's why it's more important than ever to stay on top of best practices, talk to experts, make sure your systems are as secure as they can be, and be ready to adapt as technology changes, because we all know how fast that happens.
Right, you don't want to get caught flat-footed on data security, that's for sure.
No, not
So,
at all.
okay, so we've talked a lot about what companies need to do, but what about the people whose data we're talking about?
Good point.
What about me? What about you? What rights does this law actually give to individuals?
That's where we really see this global push toward empowering people with their data come into play. So Algeria's law 1807, it spells out a few key rights for individuals, like the right to be told how their data is being used, for example. They can access their data, they can get inaccurate data corrected, and they can even object to the processing of their data if there are certain circumstances.
Oh, I like that right to object part. I like that a lot.
Right.
No more of this, like, mysterious data collection in the shadows.
It's about transparency.
Exactly. Companies can't just assume they have free reign
Yeah.
over your information.
I think that's a really important point.
Hmm.
This is about putting individuals back in control.
Okay, I like it. But how does that actually work in the real world? Like, let's say I'm in Algeria,
Okay.
and I want to know what a company has on me.
Right.
What do I do?
So that's where that data protection representative we talked about earlier, they come in. Individuals, they can exercise their rights by contacting that representative directly.
Oh, okay.
So that person, they're the point of contact. They handle those requests, and they make sure the company responds properly and on time.
So it's like having a direct line to the data protection superhero we talked about.
Exactly.
Okay, I could get used to that. That's pretty good. But in all seriousness, what's stopping a company from just ignoring me? Is there any real enforcement behind this law?
You bet there is. That's where the AMPDP comes in. That's Algeria's brand new data protection authority. And let me tell you, they've got some teeth. They can investigate companies, they can see their data, and they can issue some pretty serious penalties if a company isn't following the rules.
Whoa, okay, so they can really come after you. This is serious stuff.
Oh, yeah. Data protection is not something to be taken lightly.
So what's the worst case scenario here? What's the worst that could happen to a company that just blows this law off completely?
Well, like I said, the ANPDP can do on-site inspections.
Oh, no, thank you. I wouldn't want that.
Right. I mean, they can access data, ask for documents, even interview employees. They mean business.
No more sweeping those data protection issues under the rug.
Yeah.
So what about penalties? What are we talking about here?
Well, on the administrative side, there are warnings, of course. They can demand you fix whatever it is you're doing wrong. And then there are fines, up to 500,000 Algerian dinars.
I don't even know what that translates to, but it sounds like a lot.
It's a good chunk of change, that's for sure.
I bet some companies out there are thinking, fines, it's just the cost of doing business.
I'm sure some are, but here's the thing. Algeria, they've also included the potential for criminal sanctions.
You're kidding. Criminal charges for misusing data, that's a whole other level.
It definitely sends a message, that's for sure. We're talking potential prison sentences for individuals who are involved in really serious violations. Algeria's not playing around here.
Wow, I'm starting to sweat just thinking about it. Okay, so the message is loud and clear. If you're handling personal data, Algeria is serious about protecting it. But this is just one law in one country.
Right.
Why should our listeners, who could be anywhere in the world, why should they care about this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The biggest takeaway here, I think, is that data protection, it's not just a local issue anymore. It's a global trend. And it's picking up steam. Even if this specific law doesn't apply to you right now, understanding these ideas, knowing where things are headed, that's crucial for anyone who deals with this kind of information.
So don't wait for a law to catch up with you.
Exactly.
Get ahead of it.
Be proactive.
Whether you're, some big company or just a small business owner, this is something you have to pay attention to.
Absolutely. It's the future of data.
This deep dive into Algeria's data protection law has been fascinating.
It really has.
I mean, we've talked about what companies need to do, what they absolutely should not do.
Right.
And those penalties, yikes.
Definitely got to be careful there.
No kidding. But, what really gets me is this whole idea, this big change we're seeing of giving individuals more control over their own data. Like, what do you think that means for the future? For the internet? For all of us online?
It's a huge question, isn't it? And to be honest, we're just starting to figure it out.
Right.
But I think as people realize what's really going on, how much their data is actually worth,
Yeah.
they're going to start demanding more. More transparency, more control.
So you think we're heading toward a world where it's individuals calling the shots?
I think so, and not the companies.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Imagine like a dashboard for your data
Okay.
where you can see everything that's being collected about you. You see who has it, what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
You could even decide what you're okay with sharing. Set your own privacy, basically.
That would be incredible. It'd be like having your own, like, digital bodyguard.
Exactly.
But be honest, how realistic is that? That sounds a little too good to be true.
Well, it might sound futuristic, but the tech is already being developed.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Things like decentralized data storage, where your information isn't kept in one place, which we all know can be vulnerable, but spread out, so it's way harder to access.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Or what if you could use services online without them ever knowing who you really are? Total anonymity.
That's putting individuals back in control. I like it. This is exciting stuff. But like anything, there are going to be some bumps in the road, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, figuring out the technical side of it is one thing,
Yeah.
but what about the legal side? The ethical side?
It's true. It's true.
How do we balance privacy with, say, innovation? Because we still want technology to move forward, right? These are big questions.
It's going to be a fascinating journey, that's for sure.
No doubt about it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, is there one thing, one big takeaway you really hope our listeners will remember?
If I had to pick just one, it would be this. Be informed and be proactive.
I like that.
Don't wait for the laws to change or to have something bad happen to you.
All right.
Take some time to learn about your rights, see what's out there, what kind of technology is being developed, and demand better from these companies, the ones you're giving your information to.
It's valuable. Treat it that way.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been incredibly insightful.
It's been my pleasure, truly. Data protection is something I'm really passionate about, and, getting to chat with you about it has been great.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of data protection Algerian style. Hopefully you found it informative, maybe a little inspiring, and if nothing else, a good reminder to protect your data. Until next time, stay curious out there.